I built a giant planet in Minecraft survival mode and I needed more than 700 hours to complete it. The planet has different biomes all around and the inside has a lot of redstone technology, a giant storage system and lots of farms. The storage system is connected to all the farms with water tubes. But now you're here asking me, was this really done in survival mode? Why not creative mode? And are you lying to us? The simple answer is, it's not fake. And in this video I will show you how I did it. I started building over an ocean biome because I wanted as much space as possible below the planet. First I need to create a spherical skeletal structure and I used dirt for building it. Dirt is very easy to break in case I want to remove it again. I went a bit overboard with the size. The planet has a diameter of 150 blocks. Now, there are some tools that generate spheres. Those were a big help, but translating it into the game was a challenge. As we don't play with mods, every block in each circle had to be counted manually to get the perfect shape. I quickly realized I need to get some overview of the project, so I drew the most important outlines of the sphere first. After building the dirt circles up to the equator, I started with the core of the planet, and this is the best location for the storage system. The storage has 160 sortable item slots with 2 double chests space for each item. Looking at the design, you could say it's made of smaller sub-storage systems that are fused together. Standing in the middle, no matter where you look, to the north, south, east or west, there are rows of chests. In case you're wondering what the honey blocks are for, they are for aligning the items perfectly for the sorting hoppers. The whole storage has one input chest and the water tubes are pushing the items around the whole system, and if they don't get sorted, they will be put into the overflow chests. Now back to the question, why am I doing this in survival mode and not creative mode? Easy. It's a SMP server and this is my base. All of the biggest German Minecraft content creators play on the server and each year the builds are getting bigger and bigger. Here you can see some of the other creations on the server. This map is season 9 of our SMP and each season is going for a year. Season 9 has taken place in 2021, so it has already been a while, but I felt it is time to finally show it on my English channel. Now, back to the planet. I wanted 4 entrances to the core and storage system from each direction, so I needed to build giant holes into the surface. Each cave entrance was built in a certain style depending on the biome on the surface of the planet where the hole is located. As you can see, the first entrance was made in a lush cave style. Next, I finished all the water tubes for the storage system and started decorating the planet core. I mainly used some darker deep slate stone. At that point it was time to cover up all of the planet core as I wanted to start building farms as soon as possible. There was a lot of empty space around that needed to be filled. It took quite a while, but I hurried up a bit. The first farm had to be a bone meal farm. A bone meal farm would be useful for a lot of other farms that grow stuff. I used the moss composting farm that is self-sustaining and produces way more bone meal than it uses for itself. This is how it works. Stone generators produce stone. Moss spreads onto these blocks and convert the stone to moss blocks. The pistons crush these moss blocks into items and water transports the items into composters. The first use for the bone meal was an automatic furnace that is fueled by bamboo. It could request bone meal from the farm below when it was running, and bamboo was produced very fast with the bone meal and fed into the furnaces. But then it was time for the first biome at the Lush Cave. I called it Lush Forest. Here's why the real difficult stuff starts now. To place blocks from the outside onto the planet's surface, I need to stand somewhere. Basically, I use dirt as scaffoldings and this way I create a temporary second hull around the planet. The blocks need to be placed from the outside. Also, one thing to mention, the trees and every structure I placed onto the surface needed to point straight away from the core. I have to build sideways trees. In the Lush Forest biome it was pretty easy, but there are more difficult biomes to come. I didn't finish the first biome because I was not sure about the final size. The final size was decided later when it was time to close the gaps between each biome. On the opposite side of the Lush Forest I started a new biome I called Wasteland, with a lot of dead trees and cobwebs, and right in the middle was the perfect place for my nether portal. It covers the entrance to the core on the side. The biome has a lot of brown and muddy colors on the ground. Sadly, back then, the mud block was not a thing because it was introduced later in the next update. So I used a lot of brown, terracotta, rooted dirt and coarse dirt. There was also a perfect place for pointed ripstone. They are looking a bit like fangs, don't they? The next biome was the Sulfur Lake biome. I couldn't really use any water for building, so I chose light blue concrete. Because of the sulfur, this biome is also hostile to vegetation, and besides a few giant spruce trees, there was not much else to be found. But I already had an idea what to do with a giant entrance to the core in this biome. Hold on, I will tell you soon enough. By the way, this is not my biggest project yet. In Season 10 I built a whole kingdom in 800 hours, and if you watched this video until the end, leave a like and subscribe. I will show this kingdom in another video. But rockets were getting expensive, so I decided to build another farm inside of the planet. A creeper farm. Yes, we did have a shopping district, but with my rocket consumption I wanted to be independent, and hey, it was the plan all along to stuff the planet with lots of farms anyway. Everything the farm produces will be automatically put into the storage system. Oh, and maybe one thing to note, I harvested all of the gunpowder by letting the creepers freeze in powdered snow. I actually don't remember why I chose to do so. I quickly built all the floors and used tinted glass for closing the sides. This way I was certain there was absolute darkness inside. It was a bit of a challenge to get all the cats up there, but it was nothing in comparison of the patience needed to paint the biomes on the outside. And there was the keyword, back to the biomes on the surface of the planet. I made the Wasteland biome bigger and upgraded it with a few new blocks. I felt dripstone blocks would look very good on the ground, and I placed some giant skeleton rib cages made out of bone blocks. I think we are very close to getting this biome to the final size. As for the Sulfur Lake, I decided to make two smaller lakes next to the big one and try to cover more of the surface. The trees were a bit more complicated because it's not enough to build them sideways, they need to be built in a perfect angle pointing away from the core. I tried to make at least a few of them equally spread out. Oh, and they are not too big, normal trees would be the same size. I continued to build the Lush Forest biome. In comparison to the other biomes, it seemed really small. I also added a bit more details and some spikes made out of calcite blocks. The calcite should give a little bit of contrast, and I left a few torches there, as I was not ready to have mob spawning. All the torches will be removed later. Next is a really big project, maybe my favorite biome of all. I wanted to make a biome I called Mythril Ore Biome, something like this, I actually forgot the name. I made a giant ore vein shaped like an S, and the difficulty level went through the roof, because I had to curve this rift-like structure onto the round shape of the planet. And that's not all, it's also three-dimensional, going like a ravine into the inside of the planet surface. Maybe you recognize this Mythril ore. I modified this ore from the Hypixel Skyblock Dwarven mines, adding a few new blocks like warp planks and calcite and basalt and blackstone to the color palette. The rest of the biome is made out of tuff, granite, dripstone, mossy cobblestone and a few other blocks like copper ores for details. I also made some bigger spikes out of blackstone and used a few leaves to get some vegetation in. This biome was the first one to close a gap between two other existing biomes. And as I was building on the upper part of the sphere, I didn't need any dirt blocks anymore, and that felt really good. The biome looked a little bit boring with only the big ore vein, so I decided to add a few new special glow ores made out of shroomlight blocks and magma blocks. I tried to spread them out equally to give the biome the right balance of the new color. And finally it was time to remove all the dirt blocks. But it's not just about the surface, it's finally time to show you what I did with the Sulfur Lake entrance. I formed a cave and flooded it. I made sure that the water could not flow out of the planet and decorated it with underwater hot springs and more. Sadly, I did not record everything in time lapses, but here are some other impressions. I made several of these hot springs and a giant clam out of prismarine. There's a hidden conduit, so every player has water breathing while diving in here, and the cave is very rocky with blackstone spikes. Next, it was time to build the biome on the top side, and here I tried to make it even better than the biomes before. I called this biome Magical Forest. So I needed to create some magical trees made out of dripstone blocks and amethysts. I used end rods to make a new sort of hanging vines, and the character of the biome is rather colorful, magical, fairy-like. And it looked really good, so I continued with more trees. One was simply not enough to fill the whole biome, but the first tree right on the top had to be the biggest one. As you can see, the top of the planet was so high I had trouble with snow falling, but I solved this problem later by using light blocks covered with moss carpets. To make it even more colorful on the ground and keep the style, I used some amethyst blocks, mossy cobblestone blocks, and I chose to make a pink foggy lake with glass. With this technique you can create illusions of infinite deep lakes. You just need to place a layer of glass blocks, leave a layer of air, place glass blocks again, and so on. Oh, in case you were wondering about the strings on the glass lake, they are against the snowfall, as I could not place any light source there. Meanwhile, a wandering trader visited me on my planet, and I enriched the area with a lot of plants to make it even better. Did you see the lily pad on the lake? Later on I added some big roots and a bit more details like diamond ores. Next, it was time for another massive biome and the biggest structure on this planet, the volcano biome. There was still one entrance left and I chose to turn it into a volcano. The volcano was made out of basalt and the whole biome was burnt and dark, and I used a lot of black stone. I wanted lava flowing out of this volcano, but of course I couldn't use real lava, so I used magma blocks. The trees and other vegetation was burned by this lava, and so the only option I had was crimson wood. Oh, and another interesting thing to mention, the entrance to the planet core is a lava lake, so the player has to fly through a wall of real lava if he wants to enter from the side. Here is how the inside of the volcano lake was made. I used a dark stone palette, and this is the connection cave to the storage system. Inside of the planet, up means up again and down means down, in case I haven't clarified it yet. And this is how the final result looks like. I looked out for a lot of uniqueness and variation, so the South Pole had to be a frozen biome. Everything was covered in snow and I built some giant ice spikes. I quickly had some mobs spawning there, but it was not that big of an issue. The most satisfying part was when I finally removed all the dirt scaffoldings. I even came back later because the biome looked so boring and I added a special frozen lake with diamond ore, sea lanterns and so on. But then it was time for the giant mushroom biome. I tried to find a block that looked the most like mycelium for the ground and filled up the whole gap between the other biomes. Then I built a few giant mushrooms, a lot of unique ones, and again they had to be in the right angle pointing away from the planet. It was difficult. And here just for you, the satisfying part of removing all the dirt scaffoldings again. Next, I filled in a desert biome between the volcano and the wasteland biome. I used sandstone because you know how gravity works, sand won't work, and I thought a few giant cacti with pink fruits would look good. Here and there a few fences for dead bushes, and well, there's not much more to see in a desert, right? Between the volcano and the lush forest was a gap as well, and I decided to build a mesa biome right in there. Now I needed some orange terracotta for the ground, and I built a few giant stone pillars just like in the normal Minecraft mesa biome. The colors should be in the same order as the normal mesa biome generates rocky formations. Above the mesa biome was a good spot for another biome, a soul sand valley biome. The ground was mixed with soul sand and soul soil. Again, giant skeleton rib cages were standing there and soul fire was everywhere. I also placed a few basalt pillars, and to fill the gap above this biome and the magical forest, I decided to make a warped forest. I mean, why not use a few nether biomes? This biome was a bit bigger and I built a lot of warp trees. Now, I could not find the rest of the time lapses for the other biomes anymore, it's been a while, but here are how they looked like after they were finished. Below the Sulufur Lake I made a giant diamond ore biome out of more than 200 individual diamond blocks. Above the giant mushroom biome, I built a giant flower biome. You can see all the different Minecraft vanilla flowers here. Next to the flower biome, I built a rocky basalt delta biome with lava lakes made out of magma blocks. The surface is also a bit more three-dimensional. Next to this biome is a crimson forest biome, very much like the warped forest that we already built. I added a few more details here and there. And to fill up the sphere completely, I added an end biome. Well, it's more like the dragon island with the obsidian pillars and the bedrock formation with the dragon egg on top. Now, here's a list about all the farms that were built inside of the planet that I haven't mentioned yet. I made a mushroom farm, an automatic wood farm that I designed myself, a lava farm, a concrete converter, an iron farm. On the middle floor I made a sugarcane farm, a melon farm, a pumpkin farm, a honey farm, and that's not all. Also a cactus farm, a kelp farm, a nano farm for carrots and potatoes and other crops. I even made a root farm, a wool farm for all colors, a snow farm and a basalt farm. I integrated a villager trading station and decorated my planet core with dark coal blocks, blackstone blocks, etc. Oh, and there's still one more interesting thing about the storage system. All the tubes turned out to be so long I would have trouble with the 5-minute despawn timer. I integrated a minecart with a dolphin that could pick up the items in the water tube, and the dolphin resets the despawn timer this way. Having the time-lapse and creative light camera perspective does not even come close to describe this project. Walking around in person lets everything seem much bigger. To top it off, I decided to build a space station a bit further away from the planet. I tried to let it look a bit like the ISS, and there's even zero gravity inside. I think this SMP season had a few more stories to tell, but for now, what do you think about this project? Leave a comment below, a like would be awesome, and if this video blows up, I will show you my kingdom project, just as promised, next time.